This is a test. Hi. Is this working? Is it wonky? Who knows? Okay. So, in what ways does your media product use, develop or challenge forms and conventions of real media products? My film was highly influenced by comedies such as Superbad, Juno and Gregory Goes Boom, which all long for the nostalgia of small towns around and the 90s. Its convention in teen comedy is to be set in small towns or high schools, to give them a feeling of seclusion and focus on the themes of growing up. This gives them a feeling of being detached from a real and modern world by creating a film world that is familiar to the audience yet also feels unreal. In my short film, I decided to use the idea of detachment and familiarity to create a more subversive piece of film. I conformed to the conventions of comedy by using a setting the audience would know and recognise. A toilet, however, I created a feeling of detachment in my film by not allowing the audience to be aware of a world outside of the setting, thus creating a feel of timelessness and disengagement from a world apart. It is also common in trash culture with films such as Pink Flamingos by John Waters to also deal with feelings of detachment from the outside world, focusing on the very undergrowth of society. And I use this well by using the idea of a toilet, the literal thing no one wants to talk about. The camera itself conformed strongly to the use of camera in classic comedy films and also trash culture films. I used a shaky and handheld camera with a lot of close-ups and detachment from the actual subjects in order to create this feeling of the camera being its own identity and person within the film. I made a conscious decision to use the same camera shots that are used in slapstick comedy in the late 20s to 40s. Charlie Chaplin's A Dog's Life is extremely simplistic in its use of camera movement to provide effect. Thus why I've used a lot of wide shots that allow both characters to be in the same shot. However, I also subverted this by using a lot of head-on medium shots that allowed the subject itself to feel extremely trapped in its own surroundings, as the camera itself and the screen became a fourth wall to the two walls around them and the black wall behind them. Although not as interesting critically, comedy, it allows the more important aspects of a comedy film to shine through, such as the language and physical comedy. Whilst there was no real physical comedy within my film, the simplistic camera movements allowed interest to be created through the complete focus on the subject. Camera movement in comedy is designed not to interrupt the audience's engagement with a subject on screen. In Pink Flamingos, John Waters rarely allows the camera to take up space in the room, choosing often to shoot from a corner of a room or behind a hedge. This type of cinematic separation between the audience and the film world, which heightens the voyeurism of the concept of film and can make the audience feel uncomfortable, increasing the comedy of a scene. I use this in my film, as the toilet for many is a private place, and by placing a camera over doorways or in cubicles, it gave the sense of exploitation of the subjects that the audience were watching. I used editing and sound to create comedic effect in my film, both of which are often used in real media products to create effect. Typically, comedy films tend to use fast cuts to enhance the comedic style and use sound to heighten the visual, oral and spatial relationships to create a response. In my film, I decided to subvert some of the editing choices usually chosen to enhance comedic effect in order to create simplicity and attempt not to distract. Edgar Wright is especially known for his fast cuts, keeping the audience's attention at maximum, and helps the dialogue and narrative move quickly. Instead of following the conventional editing of a comedy film, I chose to allow shots to linger to vary the pace and fulfill one of my initial purposes of the narrative, to make the audience feel alienated and uncomfortable with the subject matter of the film. In one shot, I decided to use slow motion and reverse in conjunction with a sound effect when Danielle, playing Nia, walks out of the toilet. The slow motion of a door coming towards the camera and Danielle herself exiting the shot. The audience is able the audience is able to gather that there is a complete cinematic separation between the real world and cinematic world due to the unnaturalistic editing and style that is shot in.